Hey everybody, Cap here. Welcome to this month's Army story. As always, Army stories here on my channel are, first off, all true stories. I have to either have witnessed the event or incident take place with my very own astigmatic eye, or physically participated in what took place in order for it to be told here on my channel. Secondly, none of these stories are intended to make me look like I'm some sort of big friggin' hero, because I've got news for you, I'm not. Having said that, this month's story, well, first of all, we're on chart 17 here, so 17 months worth of Army stories down. We'll see how many more we get out of this. Anyhow, let's get started. So here we are, we're in the middle of Desertshield, and we're deployed. And we're living outdoors, which seems to me like, oh, we're in the field, right? Not according to the Army. So we started having field exercises. So we had to go from the field where we were living that had no vegetation to another field that also had no vegetation in order to do Army things in the Army. Yeah. So we started having what we would call a breach X. The Iraqi armed forces had built a large double berm along the border between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Saudi Arabia. And there was at least they thought perhaps that it was a pretty formidable obstacle. In the end, it ended up being no big deal at all. But we took their threat and the fact that they had fought the Iranians for nearly 10 years very seriously. And so we had a series of multi-day exercises during which we worked on brigade and battalion task force level breaching of their Soviet-style obstacles. And we found some things that, hey, the stuff that we were doing that we had come up with to do what we called an in-stride breach, where we would pull up to a minefield, most of that was pretty good. Except there was one major problem. We, as combat engineers, had a piece of equipment called a mine clearing line charge. And of course, the Army likes acronyms, so it was a MCLIC. A square tube trailer with dually tires. And on top of that was a metal tub with a strap-on metal lid. Inside that tub was, people frequently on TV describe it as a hose of C4 or something along those lines, and that is not at all accurate. I'm going to put this down because I am half Italian, and at this point I need to talk with my hands. The MCLIC consists of, like I said, the trailer with the metal tub on it. It's a rope. There's a nylon rope about that big around in this trailer, and around that nylon rope are blocks of C4 plastic explosive, probably about that big, and about that long. and they're in kind of a heavy nylon sock. Through the rope and through the C4 is 2 lines of detonating cord. Detonating cord doesn't burn, it detonates. That's why it's called detonating cord. At the front of that, there's some sort of hardware assembly, and that hardware, I think there's a steel cable and some chain. It attaches to a rocket motor with the nozzles up at the front pointing backwards. It's a big solid fuel rocket motor, and it's probably about that long and probably 6 or 8 feet long. Down inside the tub, there's a coffee can size object, and it contains the circuitry necessary to fire the rocket motor and to fire the det cord, which will detonate the basic roughly 1.5 tons worth of C4 plastic explosive. So what was supposed to happen is we would mount the rocket motor on its lifting arm, pull up to an obstacle, and usually for our purposes a minefield. We would raise the arm, and from the track commander's hatch he would have a long cable with a control box. He would fire the rocket motor, and then looking out through his periscopes on his hatch, see that the entire thing had played out, it was now resting on the ground, and from there he was supposed to switch to the charge and fire the charge. The huge explosive charge would then detonate, and either by sympathetic detonation set off any landmines within, say, a meter of it, or throw them to the side. And what that would do is it would clear a path with no mines in it, at least theoretically, wide enough for 1 tank. The problem was they didn't work. Oops. So it turned out that the problem was the rope was nylon. Nylon rope stretches. And there's so much rope and so much stretch to the nylon that it wouldn't set the fuse that was inside this coffee can sized container. So you could fire the rocket motor and it'd go whoosh and it would be real impressive, and then you just have this misfired thing sitting on the ground that would have you then have to have someone probably under fire get out of your APC, your armor personnel carrier, get a marlin spike on the crimpers, the cap crimpers, work the rope open to get at the detonating cord. Then you'd have to take some sort of blasting cap, tape it to the det cord, initiate that blasting cap, setting off the explosive, and it was a real mess. And we like to make fun of each other in the military. We do that a lot. There's a lot of inter-service ball busting that takes place. As much as we tease them about being crayon eaters, it was the combat engineers in the U.S. Marine Corps that came up with the fix. And it turned out all you had to do, there was a chain attached to the rope with a hose clamp. And that chain yanked on the switch in this detonator assembly. All you had to do was loosen the hose clamp, move the hose clamp which had the chain on it, something like 1.5 or 2 feet, and retighten it down. And all of a sudden everything was just super swell and everything worked just fine. A few of them were detonated in training in order to make sure that the fix actually worked, which it did. And after that, we crossed the border, and well, you know how things went with Desert Storm. But anyway, that's this month's Army story. Thank you for watching. New videos every Wednesday. Sometimes something else gets thrown in on a Monday or a Friday. Appreciate your time. We'll see you next video. Bye-bye.